Thank you for sticking with us for this hour of BNC Live. I'm Brittany Jones. Our top story tonight, hospitals are filling up with COVID patients as health officials work to contain the highly contagious Delta variant. The CDC says the current 7-day average for new hospitalizations is more than 7,000, pushing hospital staff to the limits.
Viruses cannot mutate unless they replicate. You protect the vulnerable targets, who are unvaccinated people, by vaccinating them. And when you do so, you do a very, very strong blocking of the evolution of variants that could be problematic. The ultimate end game of all this is vaccination.
And Johns Hopkins University says the daily average for new COVID cases is more than 100,000. The last time that happened was back in February. In total, there are more than 35.7 million COVID cases in the U.S. and more than 616,000 people have died. Health officials are urging people to get the shot. So far, only 51% of the population is fully vaccinated. Meanwhile, Florida Department of Health and the state's Department of Education has issued emergency rules to protect parents' right to choose when it comes to COVID policies. The proposal will allow parents to transfer their children out of schools where they have been, quote, harassed by COVID guidelines, such as mask mandates. Governor DeSantis signed an executive order last week preventing schools from making such policies. However, several school districts in the state have defied the order, risking the potential of losing school funding. Under the new proposal, parents can use the Hope Scholarship to transfer their kids to another school or enroll in an approved private school. And joining me now is Dr. Elaine Rowling, virologist and infectious disease expert. Good evening, Dr. Rowling. It's good to have you back with us, Doc.
Good evening, Brittany. Super fantastic Sunday. Glad you're back.
And Doc, so as COVID cases continue to increase, could we see new variants that are resistant to the vaccine? And if so, where does this leave us?
Well, and good question, and that is very true. You have to understand virology and mutations. You have to understand that the virus itself is looking to try to survive. And so you can imagine somebody's vaccinated and they get infected with the virus sees that vaccination, that program, it's going to change. It's just part of the evolution. That's why it's very important that we have to have a uniform policy on if we're going to vaccinate people or unvaccinate people. We're going to have a significant program where people understand virology, i.e. they need to understand what vaccine effectiveness is. So for example, right now, we have people that have been vaccinated are having breakthrough infection. Well, breakthrough infection means that vaccine was not effective because, for example, in Chicago, 151 people died that were vaccinated. Now we're seeing people being admitted to the hospital that are vaccinated. It shows you that through breakthrough infection that the virus is already mutated. And that goes back to, Brittany, what we talked about before, is for every new variant mutation, you have to have a new vaccine. The Pfizer is an example of that. Moderna president said that 3 days ago that we have to develop a vaccine for the Delta mutation. That is just a reality. And as we continue to spin around in circles, we're going to create more and more mutations and stuff. And this is why this is going to be a long, drawn-out process, because each new mutation, for example, the Delta, the Gamma, the Iota, the Eta, are going to have to do their own world circulation pandemic. And so I can promise you to hold this. Next year, we're going to be getting ready to go on the upslope again on a big third pandemic.
Well, Doc, Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis says the decision to wear masks in schools should be up to the parents. The Florida Department of Health issued an emergency ruling to protect parents' right to choose. What are your thoughts about the governor, and do you think he's putting children's lives in danger?
Well, the governor of Florida already has put the children's lives in danger by not having a mask program. So the fact that you have to understand, if you're dealing with a virus that's airborne, has an airborne transmission, you have to wear a mask. And there's no debate about that. It's not a constitutional right to wear a mask, because when we talk about public health policy, it's the good of the whole of the community. And so the bottom line is that every person in the state of Florida, everybody in the United States, vaccinated or unvaccinated, has to wear a mask. And then when you start talking children, and children are dying from the Delta mutation, that is very important because that's a game changer. And if kids are going to go back into school, they have to have an antiviral mask, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, because the transmission of this virus, the Delta mutation, is very effective. 225% more transmission, 5 seconds it takes you to be infected by the virus. Doesn't matter if you're a young child, adult, old. So that mask will be the frontline protection dealing with a viral disease. And so it's very important that the parents make sure that they protect their children, because we've had children die in Arkansas, and that is a game changer when it comes to it. It's not about a debate when children start dying.
Yeah, and we know many of those parents are planning to send their kids to school with masks anyway. So you mentioned Arkansas. Parents' right to choose is also being debated in that state. You spent time in the hot zone. Is this putting politics before health? What do you think?
This was a problem when we started this a year ago, Brittany, when politics got into the world of infectious diseases. I've never seen something like this in my life, where politics people are telling people not to wear masks, telling people not to be vaccinated. Whatever the case, politics got into it, and the politics are going to drive this train right off the roof. This is why we're getting ready for the second big major pandemic. The number up to 200,000 patients are going to be admitted in September. 4,000 people are going to be dying until the beginning of the year. And then this is the people not doing what they should be doing in protecting the population, i.e., wear a mask. What is the Texas governor, the governor of Alabama, getting involved in a disease that can kill people or cause significant complications? There is rhyme and reason why people be wearing a basic viral mask and an antiviral to be able to protect children, and that it is.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about wearing the mask, you talk about different ways to protect yourselves. You have the vaccination out there. There were 6 members actually at a church in Jacksonville, Florida, that died of COVID-19 within the last 10 days. 4 of them were under the age of 35, and reportedly they were all in good health. What these members had in common is that they were all unvaccinated, and there are so many people who are still afraid to get it, Doc. So what can people do? What are your thoughts about that if they haven't gotten vaccinated?
Well, I mean, this is just the reality. This is what we call the reality on the ground. I've had the opportunity to take care of several patients over the last weeks, Mexico, LA, and these folks were 30.4, spitting up blood. I mean, being admitted to the hospital. This Delta mutation is going to change the world over the months. And so at the end of the day, we have to make sure that people are comfortable in understanding what the limitations and the advantage of having a vaccination program. Be it, this is the reality. You can have antibodies for 85 days. Oh, we're going to have a booster to continue to do the antibodies. In a very effective vaccine program, are you testing the people for antibodies to make sure people are protected, the general population, at 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months? If we don't get a hold of this, Brittany, we're already going into a catastrophic fall with new cases, new mutations, influenza, etc. This is because people are not really listening, and we're in the world now of the virus is driving the narrative, and it's going to drive the policy on what's going to happen in the future. And this is very important, that we have to have a uniform message, information, understanding biosafety, biosecurity protocols, and understanding the limitations of what we can do in a pandemic, endemic global infection with the SARS-CoV virus, which is very immunogenic.
But some people are actually also saying, too, that they're afraid to get it if they know that they're still going to get infected by the virus either way. So that's also making them hesitant as well. What do you think about that?
That is very true, because we have to understand, and this was not explained to the American population in the world. Mm-hmm. That's why you have to have people that are virology and understand vaccines. You have to understand the vaccine, the Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and all the other vaccines out there are made off of the alpha virus, the D614G, the Asian strain. That vaccine has nothing to do with the beta strain, the gamma strain, the Indian strain, the South African strain, Kappa, iota, and all these new variant mutations. And that is where people have this hesitance because, hey, now I'm seeing people got vaccinated, full vaccination, and getting sick and dying. We're now people that are unvaccinated, getting sick and dying. Well, it's not from the vaccine, it is from the Delta mutation, the virus itself. And that is why you have to have a specific vaccine for the specific virus, i.e. maybe in 3 weeks we'll have another mutation and we're going to have a vaccine for that. That is the reality. And when you sit down and people see the difference in people being vaccinated dying, people unvaccinated dying, an ineffective policy, that's going to give people second thoughts. And people are going to be hesitant because, you know, what's the reality? I get the vaccine, I'm still going to get sick. Yeah. Well, they need to understand that the vaccine has to be specific for the specific mutation of the virus that is prominent in the population. And right now, we have to have a vaccine for the Delta strain.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like we need vaccination on top of vaccination. Well, Dr. Lane Rowland, thank you as always for joining us every Sunday. We appreciate your time. Coming up next, changing the game. Many companies promise they will do it, but how many are actually making the change? Ahead, we talk to the Big Three, who's bringing more diversity to the sports world. That's ahead. A few years ago, producer, actor, and music legend Ice Cube and entertainment executive Jeff Quantinez set out to create a new basketball league to change the game. But now they're doing that on more than just a court. They pride themselves on the diversity within their company, all while many boardrooms across the nation still remain predominantly white. And joining me now to talk more about this is board chair. A few years ago, producer, actor, and music legend Ice Cube and entertainment executive Jeff Quantinez set out to create a new basketball league to change the game. But now they're doing that on more than just a court. They pride themselves on the diversity within their company, all while many boardrooms across the nation still remain predominantly white. And joining me now to talk more about this is board chair Amy Trask of the Big Three Basketball League. Amy, good evening and welcome to BNC.
Well, thank you for having me. It is truly my honor and pleasure to join you.
Yes, we appreciate your time tonight. So, Amy, the Big Three is a league more focused on entertainment and innovation, but also it has a much bigger mission when it comes to changing the face of the game behind the scenes. Could you talk about that and how this has worked for the organization so far?
Well, it's worked magnificently, and doing the right thing is what businesses should do. As you mentioned a moment ago, a lot of businesses are talking about this. Not many are doing this, and it is a delight to be part of a business that is truly walking the walk with respect to race, gender, ethnicity, and every other individuality that has absolutely no bearing whatsoever on whether one can do a job. If you can do a job, you can do a job, and nothing matters in terms of race, gender, ethnicity, or any of those individualities.
Yeah, and I mean, Amy, last year after George Floyd was murdered, companies came out of the woodworks, as we say it. They said they were going to start making their companies more diverse. Not everyone who said they're committed to the culture, as we say that as well, has done that. What do you think about that, and why do you think it takes these corporations so long to get the job done?
Well, I wish I knew what the answer to speeding this up would be. I think the answer in large part, however, is all of us speaking with the power of our purse. Mm-hmm. That's an expression I learned years and years ago. We all have the power of our purse, and we can spend our money where and how and with whom we choose to spend it. And if we can spend it with businesses that are doing the right thing, then that's where we should spend it. The power of the purse is very powerful, and a number of businesses have taken note about what Cube and Jeff and Clyde and the big three are doing, and they have stepped forward and said, wow, here is a business that is hiring people without regard to race, gender, ethnicity, religion, or any other individuality that doesn't matter, and those sponsors are walking the walk.
Yeah. And why do you think it's so hard to adapt? Why is it so hard to say, you know, these people are qualified, black people, brown people are qualified for these jobs, so they should have these jobs?
I can't for the life of me understand why people continue to have that view. It's absurd. I hope, and again, power of the purse goes to this, that we can implement business Darwinism. Because a business which doesn't hire in the manner we're discussing, in the manner in which the big three hires, should by definition fail. Because if you are eliminating from consideration people that can help you be a better business simply because of race or gender, et cetera, then you deserve to fail, and you should fail because you are eliminating vast swaths of tremendously qualified people who can help you be your best.
Definitely some strong, powerful words there. And you know, you talk about what you guys are doing. What efforts have you all been making to make sure that you all show up differently in the sports world?
Well, I'll give you one example. Year one, Clyde Drexler was one of our head coach, a head coach of one of our teams. Year two, we made Clyde Drexler commissioner of the league. He is magnificent as our commissioner, but we had to replace him as a head coach. So I was sitting in a room with Cube, with Jeff, with Clyde, and I said, what about Nancy Lieberman? And not one of them batted an eye. We brought Nancy in her first year. She won the championship. She was voted head coach of the year by all of the players and her fellow coaches. And you know what? The next year when we expanded, we added Lisa Leslie, and she did the same thing. She won the championship and was voted coach of the year. We are walking the walk with respect to race, with respect to gender, and we're going to keep doing it. And I'll share with you something else. I spent almost 30 years in the National Football League. I'm now with the big three in basketball. And never once have I encountered a player who cares about the gender or the race or the ethnicity of one of his teammates or coaches or business leaders. Players care about one thing: can you help me win? And businesses should care about one thing: can you help me be better? And that's where the discussion should end.
Yeah, that is very, very important. And so what would you like to still see change? What needs to change across the board?
Well, what needs to change is that businesses need to operate in the manner that Cube and Jeff are operating the big three, in the manner that Al Davis hired when he hired me. He hired, and I'm doing this chronologically, not in order of importance, he hired Tom Flores as a head coach. He hired me, and that was back in the early part of the 80s when a lot of people watching and listening weren't even born. And then he hired advanced Art Shell from a position coach to head coach. So men and women who are running businesses need to follow the lead of Al Davis, of Ice Cube, of Jeff Quantinetz, and hire without regard to race, gender, ethnicity, etc. And if they don't, we all have the choice as consumers to not spend our money with them.
And did they go in this with the perspective that we wanted to change the game for everybody? We wanted to be different?
Well, this is a group of individuals who have always done everything differently, and by differently, I mean magnificently. Doing the right thing should not be as hard as it seemingly is for many people. But look, it is an honor to work with Cube, to work with Jeff, and to work with Clyde, people who are doing the right thing, because that's the way these people are made. But again, that's the way they've led their lives. Do the right thing and do it for the right reasons.
Yeah. Well, Amy, we want to say thank you so much. We appreciate the work that you all are doing and making sure that we show up in those boardrooms each and every day, and hopefully other businesses hear what you all are doing and follow suit. And still ahead, racketeering, kidnapping, forced labor, those are just a few charges that R. Kelly will face in court. After the break, we'll take a close look at the jury selection process for his case. After nearly 2 years, R&B singer R. Kelly's child sexual abuse trial is set to begin Monday in New York. The award-winning recording artist is facing multiple state and federal charges with allegations dating back more than 2 decades. BNC's Eric Cox details the history of disturbing accusations against Kelly.
Grammy Award-winning and platinum-selling recording artist R. Kelly has had an illustrious career in music. But for over 20 years now, the R&B singer has faced several accusations of displaying a predatory pursuit of teenage girls. In Night Cox for BNC.
And joining me now is criminal defense attorney Michael Kushner to dive in deeper on what's to come. Michael, good evening and welcome back to BNC.
Good evening. It's great to be here.
Well, Michael, you just heard the story. R. Kelly is facing a lot, some very serious charges from racketeering, kidnapping, forced labor, and Mann Act violations. Talk about the racketeering charge and how often do you see this in sexual abuse cases?
This is a new frontier for the U.S. Attorney's Office. The RICO Act was not created to encompass this type of an enterprise. However, the Brooklyn office, the Eastern District of New York, has become creative with using it to dismantle large-scale enterprises that have to deal with particularly sexual conduct. Right before this indictment was unsealed, we had that trial going on over here of the NXIVM sex cult that was brought under a RICO guise as well. But this is one of the only cases you'll hear about in the last several years and probably into the future that is going to be styled similar to this one. This is a unique piece of litigation going on.
And why is it an effective tool for the prosecution?
Well, it's effective because it allows the federal prosecutors to bring in a lot of evidence about this organization and acts that are alleged to have been committed prior to the statute of limitations in this case. So, as you mentioned, this is going to be going back decades. I believe that the first allegation that the prosecutors are going to bring up is 1990 wedding to Aaliyah, and so you're talking 30 years ago almost that the acts and the incidents that are being discussed are going to be happening. And so the RICO law allows them to say this is a criminal enterprise, and part of its activities started at this period of time back 30 years ago and continued right up until 2018, I believe, is the last alleged act and omission.
Mm-hmm. And Michael, looking ahead to Monday, what can we expect from this jury selection process, and how difficult can the selection process be since this is a high-profile case?
So the federal system of jury selection is totally different than the state systems, and it's unlike most things you've seen before. Mm-hmm. The judge will be asking all of the questions to the potential jurors. The questions will be standard questions that are asked of every juror that comes through any case, and then each side gets to propose certain questions that they would like to have the judge ask the potential jurors. The federal judges are very easy, they're not as easy as state judges to get out of jury duty. So I would expect jury selection to be swift. Yeah. It's not a show and dance like in state court where you get to spend a lot of time as the attorney speaking to the potential jurors. The judge does it, you take your notes, you file a written objection, and then the judge moves forward.
So here's the deal. The prosecutors plan to introduce evidence that involves 19 women, and at least 7 of them were minors at the time of the alleged misconduct. Plus, we're talking about a 17-year-old boy as well. With so much evidence against him, how do you expect this trial to play out?
So, I mean, certainly the prosecution's argument sounds a lot more compelling at this point in time before we've seen what the defense is going to say. I mean, we've seen some preview of their case. Last year, they filed a motion to dismiss this case, which was denied. But their defense is going to be that this R. Kelly is not an enterprise, and those around him are so loosely associated with him that it shouldn't be considered an enterprise for criminal conduct. Separating this case from the NXIVM trial that occurred, 2 years ago, is that NXIVM case involved a real organization whose ulterior motive was sexual gratification for the leadership. This case is there's no real structure to this case. It's R. Kelly and those who worked for him in sort of a loose affiliation. And so the defense is going to need to try and dig holes into those witnesses and those associations as the government makes them known.
And Michael, in 3 words, before I let you go, you're the criminal defense attorney in this case, for instance. What would you be doing the night before this trial sets tomorrow? Put you on the spot here.
Sleep and eat.
Okay. Okay.
I think there's 3 words. You asked for 3 words. I think that tomorrow is it's not going to be that much of a day for the lawyers. I think the judge is going to do a lot of questioning. She's got a lot of preliminary issues about what evidence to let in, what questions to allow. So I think that the real fireworks are going to start on Thursday when we're scheduled to have opening arguments. So tonight, sleep and eat. Tomorrow, same thing. Wednesday, though, is going to be nervous Nellies. They're going to be up all night writing their briefs and what they want to say for that jury.
All right. Well, we will be watching closely with our coverage here on BNC. Michael Kushner, thank you so much for weighing in on this for us tonight. We appreciate your time. And jury selection in the trial for R. Kelly begins Monday. Opening statements are scheduled for August 18th. He's being held at a federal jail in Brooklyn. Coming up in sports, find out what Florida State Seminoles are saying about the passing of Coach Bobby Bowden. Plus, what HBCU athlete, Super Bowl champion, and Olympic great is tonight's King of the Hill? James Hill is up next.
In the low 90s to start the week off, and then the mid 90s as we head towards the end of the week, but at least plenty of sunshine for next weekend, Britt.
All right, I get excited about sunshine for next weekend, even though we're here. But, we still like the sunshine, because if not, it makes us feel like we want to go to sleep. You know what I mean? We come into work. So, all right, Britt, well, this is some other things bringing us some sunshine. Student loans. Just in case you missed it, the Biden administration is extending the pause on student loan repayments. The payment pause only applies to federal student loans. Student loan payments are now on hold through January 31st of next year. The pandemic relief benefit was set to expire on September 30th after an unprecedented 19-month suspension. So I am excited about it.
This is always good news, Brett. But Biden, can we get some relief?
But relief, like paid off, not just delayed.
Don't hold it. Delayed, but not denied.
I was going to say that. Bible. Okay. So, yes, from your lips to Biden's ears, hopefully he hears that to the president. All right, Britt, so another interesting thing. A Russian woman is suing McDonald's for 1,000 rupees, which is about $19.42. This comes after she says an ad forced her to break Lent. The woman, who identifies as an Orthodox Christian, says the tempting ads featuring some of Mickey D's famous cheeseburgers led her to break Lent back in 2019. She claims the company violated consumer protection laws and her moral damages. She says fast food ads should not be allowed to run during Lent, a time when Christians abstain from eating meat and dairy. How do you feel about this?
I could not hold a straight face through that whole program. But you know what? I think I need to go sue Krispy Kreme, because every time the hot light is on, and I drive on by, I have to stop and get a donut. So there's going to be a few lawsuits.
Listen, I just feel like your diet is your diet, and you know what you cannot have. It's not telling you, come eat me.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So,
No, we're not going to do that. So it's just advertisement. When you see it, you want it, but you have to say no.
Yeah.
So that's a personal choice.
Yeah, we're going to work on that willpower. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. All right, that does it for this hour of BNC Live. But stay with us. Much more news, weather, sports, and entertainment coming your way. Don't watch no ads if it's going to get you caught up, okay?